I'm in front of you and what?
I just got back from Jaycation.
Which was what?
Well, I'll say it when we get on the air.
Okay, that's fine.
I went to Canada for a wedding, and it was amazing.
Oh, cool. Good for you.
Montreal,
Oh, good.
French Canada.
It's a nice, real nice city and
It's
a lot
beautiful.
of culture and.
Yeah, beautiful city, a lot of fun,
Yeah.
good people.
I haven't been to Montreal. Leslie's been there. She really liked it.
Oh, yeah, you guys,
Yeah.
good people.
I haven't been to Montreal. Leslie's been there. She really liked it.
Oh, yeah, you guys. Good
Okay,
people.
so the stream is running and our mics are not muted.
All right.
Oh, Okay, so the stream is running and our mics are not muted.
All right.
Okay, so the stream is running and our mics are not muted.
All right.
Okay, so the stream is running
Gary's
and our
here.
mics are not muted.
All right.
What the?
Okay, so the stream is
Yeah,
running.
Gary.
Ohio. It's Buckeye Live with your host, radio and television broadcasting Hall of Fame journalist, George Lehner.
Hey, how's everybody doing tonight? It is game week, and welcome to another edition of Buckeye Live. I'm George Lehner, and he is Jay Richardson with the Jay-cation shirt on or something. This guy right over
Fresh
here.
off of the Jaycation.
Yeah. Which was where? You were in Montreal or
French
something?
Canada, Montreal. Beautiful,
Wow.
beautiful, beautiful place.
You came back with some of the accent.
Yeah, well, George, I do speak French. That's my second language. Just FYI, je parle français très bien.
Yeah. J'entre dans la salle de la classe.
Very good.
Anyway, so you had a good time.
Had a great time. It was, and got some sun in Canada, which is rare. It was beautiful.
Good. Well, so much has happened since last week, and so much will happen this week as the Buckeyes are finally set to open the season this Saturday, noon on ABC, hosting Oregon State. Jay, it has been a long time getting to this point. What are your thoughts as we sit down together at this particular time on Monday of game week?
George, I have a few thoughts about kind of the whole ordeal. One, I thought the committee did a good job of trying to get to the bottom of a timeline of series of events. When Urban found out what the situation was with Zach and Courtney, how he addressed handling it from that moment forward, how Gene addressed it, when Gene knew. Once all of these facts were, I guess, broken down and understood, they decided, 3-game suspension for Urban and I think a couple weeks for Gene as well. I guess they didn't think that they handled it as well as they could have. I'm not sure exactly what else Urban was supposed to do. It seemed to me, from what I understand, he found out from Gene, hey, this is the situation with Zach. And at that point, he had to go back to coaching the team and wait until they, got to the bottom of everything. If the Powell police couldn't find cause to make an arrest or after their investigations, I'm not sure what people expected the head coach to do other than let the process unfold. Once they had, the information they needed, he, essentially fired Zach, and that was that. I think the punishment here is, I guess he lied to the media. So, there had to be something. I think we all knew there was going to be something. It couldn't be time served and he's back out there, because that would have just been a tough look. And, we're already – the Buckeyes are already getting eaten alive right now. But if he'd have got off without any games, ESPN would have had a field day with that. Every FS1, every sports outlet, every media outlet would have just made it would have been bad. So
well, the thing that I was surprised at, Jay, was that they were talking last Wednesday. What a bizarre day last Wednesday was, and and late at night when all the brain trust got together finally and started talking. They were talking about how Urban was supposed to have taken it one step further and not just tell Gene Smith, but tell compliance. And, I mean, I'd never seen that anywhere until last Wednesday night.
Well, one, I've never seen that anywhere either. It doesn't make sense. Two, from what I understood, it was Gene coming to Urban and telling him, hey, here's what we found out about, Zach. There was an investigation about, there were some calls and,
right.
And Urban was getting that news. So I don't know what people expected Urban to do. I feel like if the AD has the information, then isn't he further up the chain than the head coach? I would assume. Yeah. I would assume the onus
maybe not monetarily, but from a
no
subscription standpoint.
Correct. From a power standpoint within the power structure of OSU athletics, I would assume the onus would be on him to move forward with whatever the protocol was, and I assume that they determined proper protocol was followed. Is what they said. So if proper protocol was followed, and I believe this is a quote, that both Urban and Gene acted in good faith, then George, what were the suspensions for?
Right. Well, that's what I don't understand. I mean, I still don't understand it. Last Wednesday was just so bizarre.
Yeah.
And that's only opened up the floodgate of criticism that wound up seeing Urban issue another statement late last week apologizing to Courtney Smith. I mean, what's going on?
George, can we just dive into that part quickly for a moment?
Sure.
Here's the issue. Urban, he gets called in there. He knows that they're kind of deliberating on the fate of the universe, so to speak, and I think he might have had an opportunity to put his 2 cents in during discussions or say, hey, listen, here's what I knew, here's when I knew it. Here's the situation. They determined that both Urban and Gene acted in good faith, and everything that they did was normal protocol. So when Urban gets the news, okay, we're still gonna bench you for 3 games without pay, he's pretty upset. So that so that presser we saw was in the aftermath, I believe, of him finding out, his situation and his fate, so to speak. And I don't think he was happy about it. So he goes in there, he says a few words that he needs to say, and he moves on. And then people had an issue with him not apologizing, personally him apologizing to Zach's wife. Courtney Smith, I'm not sure what he would be apologizing to her for. He's never struck her. He's never done her wrong. He has no issue one-on-one personally with her. So I'm not sure where it falls for him to go and say, oh, by the way, Courtney Smith, I'm so sorry. Sorry for what? He didn't do anything. That's between her and her husband. And he followed protocol. So I think that's why he was upset. But I think, once again, we're in the age of PR and social media, and no one does research anymore. People just read a headline, and they hop on the bandwagon, and they decide, okay, this guy's a monster because the headline says he knew all along. That's not the case. And I think Urban handled it the way he was supposed to handle it. He didn't, he was upset. That's a real emotion. But that doesn't play well in a situation following anything that has domestic violence tagged to it.
Right.
So, of course, he had to release another statement saying what everyone wanted him to say, which was, I'm so sorry to the victim, of the alleged victim.
And that just makes it look worse. I mean,
of course it does. It makes it look like a joke.
An embarrassment.
Exactly. It makes it look like an absolute joke, and I think it was unnecessary, but there's folks out there that feel like that needed to be said so they can sleep at night. I don't know. People who have nothing to do with the situation, wanted him to say that, and that's the media age we're in, where you got to say all the right things to everybody to make everyone feel warm and fuzzy, even if you don't want to, even if it doesn't make sense, even if it's not really the right thing to say.
Well, we have a lot more to talk about around this whole issue tonight. And we're actually going to get into some football, too.
Hey, how about that?
Previewing the football Buckeyes and what to watch for this coming Saturday when they host Oregon State. When we come back, Jay and I will look at this year's edition of the Buckeyes. It's Buckeye Live on EBSN Online.
The Rivalry, a historic showdown between two great teams and two passionate fan bases. This season, join Germain Honda of Dublin and Germain Honda of Ann Arbor as we relive the greatest moments in the history of the game, with special offers for listeners. Discover Honda's award-winning lineup of cars and SUVs, like the 2017 CR-V, starting at just over $24,000. But rest assured, whether you're in Ann Arbor or Columbus, you can count on Germain Honda to deliver the right car, the right price, the right way.
It really is the difference between winning and losing, being able to get your hands inside, defeat blockers, and it works at all positions and all skill levels. I'm Joey Bosa. See the difference to your game.
And we're back on Buckeye Live. I'm George Lehner, and I am joined every Monday night by former Buckeye and NFL veteran Jay Richardson. And Jay, this is your busy time when you're not, going all over the world, going to weddings and everything else. You're also on the air quite a bit for the folks over at Channel 6 in Columbus for pregame and postgame every week, starting this week.
Absolutely. So this week, an hour before kickoff, you tune your TVs to ABC 6, and you will see myself. You'll see Matt Finkus. He'll be there. No, I love Matt. You'll see Matt. And then we've got a little shakeup at the desk here. So you'll see Rodney. You see Rodney Dernigan there, and he'll be I don't know where he'll be sitting. I assume to my right, and Matt will be to my left. You know, you got to put your star player center court there. And then and we're going to be digesting everything that, that happened post-game as well. And I'll be giving out grades for offense, defense, special teams, and it's going to be a party. It's an amazing show. It's called The Football Fever on ABC 6 before and after the big game. And then on Friday nights on Fox 28 at about 10:42, sometime in the second half hour of 10 o'clock, you'll see me on First Scores on Fox. And this year it's brought to you by AEP Energy, and I'll be doing all the high school highlights and breakdowns for that particular evening. So it's going to be a good time.
Well, good for you. That's pretty cool.
Yeah,
that's pretty cool.
A lot of fun.
Well, over the last week, interim head coach Ryan Day has been much more visible to the media and thus the fans. It all started with a video that was released last weekend when Ryan Day announced the Buckeye captains.
Sure.
All right, we have the results of the captains. 2018 Ohio State Buckeyes. First captain, Paris Campbell! Captain number 2, Jordan Fuller! Captain number 3, Johnny Dixon! Captain number 4, Nick Bosa! Captain number 5, Terry McLaurin! Captain number 6, Isaiah Free! And another captain. The last captain, so he's the 7th captain. Tough Borland! Now, there's more responsibility. There's more responsibility, okay? As the captain of Ohio State, first off, you're going to go down. Because when you walk through here with your kids, you're going to go up and you're going to see you as a captain this year's team. We talked about what a special team this can be, and these are the leaders right here. You're going to set the example moving forward. We're going to talk what that means tonight. But congratulations, 2018 Ohio State Buckeye captain.
Jay, I just loved seeing that team spirit as those captains were named.
Big time. That's a highlight of any senior's, athletic career, not just that season or that year, but to those 6 guys, it's going to be something they'll remember for the rest of their lives. And I think it's good that, remember a couple years back, I think we had 10, 12 captains, and it was like, okay, everyone's a captain. I think it's important that captain position be an honor, not something that everyone gets. I think It should be exclusive, and I think those guys who were chosen to be captains should be honored. I was never a captain. I was a pretty good player. But I think, the guys who were chosen captains, the guys I voted for and I was excited, to have lead us. And I think that's a really, really cool deal. Cool to see Tough Borland and Nick Bosa in there. It seems like they didn't just go for seniors. They went for guys who were leaders and guys who were standout, players on the team and guys who I think were vocal leaders as well. I think that's important.
And Tough Borland is an amazing story. Nick Bosa, you almost kind of expect that he's going to be right up there as a captain. But Tough Borland, here's a guy that don't be surprised if he plays some on Saturday. The story of his recovery, I guess it's not really technically a torn Achilles, but it's something like that.
Partial,
and the story of his recovery is amazing.
Well, I think it was a partial tear or something. Anything involving the Achilles, let me tell you something. That's a career ender for a lot of guys, and I've seen that up close, and I've seen guys career end. So for him to be, I don't know, what is he, 8, 9 months out? I don't even know how many months out, and he's already considering, being active for the game and ready to play and getting a few snaps. This kid, he's got a little bit of Wolverine in him, or he's some sort of, superhero or something, because that's amazing. To me, that's just a testament to his hard work in the offseason and in the training room and getting his body right. And I think this team is going to need him for the long haul of the season, because, when it gets down to those grinded out dog days of, late October and November, where you got to run the football, you're going to need that kid. So I want to see him out there if he's healthy, but I'd rather see him later on in the fall than, in the summer.
And 3 of those captains are wide receivers.
Yeah.
There's 10 wide receivers on this football team.
I was going to say, the team's half wide receivers, and of the wideouts, half of those are seniors. So,
and again, Ryan Day said today, all of those wide receivers are going to play. They're all going to play Saturday.
We got 2 basketball teams full of wide receivers. I don't know how they're going to get them all out there, but I would expect to see a lot more 4 wides, maybe even empty 5 wide formations than we're used to seeing from Ohio State. And, I know we do the power spread stuff. I got a feeling we're going to be doing a lot more, either empty or true spread, and then we're going to probably weave it into some play action and some actual power, 5-step drop back football. This is going to get interesting. This won't be your typical Ohio State offense that you're used to seeing.
No, I am really excited to see this game Saturday and see what they do offensively. And as most expected, Dwayne Haskins was named the starting quarterback today.
Absolutely.
And Jay, one of the big position battles of fall camp, Ohio State's going to have a new center, Michael Jordan. Not the one that played in the NBA.
Oh, no?
This is a different one, Michael Jordan.
That one would be terrible out there.
He wound up taking most of the snaps during camp this fall.
I think that's important. I think you have to have a center that you trust, a guy that's intelligent, a guy that, has the teams, a guy that the team's behind, that has their confidence, because your center, and as we all know, he's replacing a big time center, and Billy, and I think that something that, is kind of an honor to play. When I played, we had Nick Mangold, first-round center, perennial Pro Bowler. You're talking about the apex of your offense, the guy that makes all the calls, the guy that helps out the young quarterback. And I think that's a good move. He's a big center now. This kid's, Michael Jordan probably 6'4", 320-something pounds. He's a big, rangy guy for a center. but you're talking about somebody that can obviously get movement at the point of contact, but more importantly, can be a leader for that offensive line unit. So that's critical.
What's the area of this offense that you're most excited to see? I mean, we hardly ever talk about the running backs and,
right.
10 wide receivers and a bevy of star-studded running backs.
You have these world-class running backs behind Haskins who are, coming off of enormous seasons. And I think we get so caught up in a new quarterback and the receivers that we forget this running game is Ohio State's bread and butter. That's what it's about. J.K. Dobbins and Mike Weber Jr. Mike, they have to go out there and they have to do the same thing they did last year, but at an even higher level because you don't have a J.T. Barrett to kind of lean on as a leader. So these guys are going to be asked to be leaders, and I think the whole group, as a unit, is going to be asked to kind of bring Haskins along. I don't want folks to get their expectations ridiculously high for those first 3 games because he, for all intents and purposes, this is his first time, starting a football game at quarterback, being at the helm. He's going to have a couple bumps and bruises. It's going to get rocky. If he goes out there in the opening drive, throws a pick 6, I don't want everyone to freak out. That we've had that before, and then we've come back and won 35-6. So we have to understand that can happen, and I think it's going to be important that those running backs, who I'm excited to see, can they have another year like last year, but take it even one notch higher. And the offensive line, man, that group has been shuffled around now. We've lost, Billy Price, big time loss, and like you said, Mike Jordan going in there. I want to see Isaiah Prince, and I want to see him dominate, and I want to see these guys gel and come together. That unit takes a couple weeks to get going, but when they do, it'll be big time. And then the tight ends. Who's going to be the big time tight ends, that comes out there and replace, really good production last year. So I want to see that.
The only big question mark that seems to be there on that offensive line is that left tackle spot. I guess Thayer Mumford has been hurt with some minor injuries during some camp, just some nagging, bumps and bruises. Yeah. But that left tackle spot is still a little bit of a question mark going into Saturday.
Yeah, it's critical, and they brought in a couple big-time youngsters who showed flashes, but, you really hope Munford is ready to go week 1. You can't put a guy at left tackle who's super green in his first time out there. You need a guy that's battle-tested, man. That's a big-time position, especially when you're talking about protecting your young quarterback who has got to be comfortable. I mean, one thing he will need, because he's not a runner, Haskins is going to need a clean pocket. He'll need to be able to, kind of step up. He's okay throwing from the well because he's tall and he has the arm to do it. But he needs to feel comfortable and confident in that left tackle spot so that he can. He's a righty, so that he can, feel comfortable turning his back and making that throw.
Ryan Day and Greg Schiano spoke with the media today, and we know more about this team tonight than we've known at any time during camp, and it's all pretty positive. Mm-hmm. Coming up, we're going to talk with former Buckeyes A.J. Trapasso and Dimitrious Stanley about what's happening in Buckeye Nation. It's Buckeye Live with the 129th edition of Ohio State football finally at hand. Back in a minute on EBSN Online.
The Rivalry, a historic showdown between 2 great teams and 2 passionate fan bases. This season, join Germain Honda of Dublin and Germain Honda of Ann Arbor as we relive the greatest moments in the history of the game, with special offers for listeners. Discover Honda's award-winning lineup of cars and SUVs, like the 2017 CR-V, starting at just over $24,000. But rest assured, whether you're in Ann Arbor or Columbus, you can count on Germain Honda to deliver the right car, the right price, the right way.
It really is the difference between winning and losing, being able to get your hands inside, defeat blockers, and it works at all positions and all skill levels. I'm Joey Bosa. See the difference in your game.
right.
And we'll
And back on Buckeye Live with a couple of special guests tonight. Dimitrious, Stanley, and AJ Trapasso joining us to talk Buckeye football. Hey, guys, how you doing?
What's going on, man? How you doing?
Got the fellas in here.
Yeah, it's great to see everybody. Dimitrious, let's start with you because, man, I haven't talked to you forever. What is your take on this whole Ohio State saga? And AJ and Jay, you can just chime right in after Dimitrious.
Well, see, George, you know how my brain works. That's why you bring me here so I can try to embarrass myself. But you know how my brain works.
No.
And, you know, when I look at it, see, a lot of the things that have been said, I do what we call word mining. I look at what everybody's saying, and I pull certain things out. And people say, so why did he get suspended? If he did what he was supposed to do, why did Urban get suspended? Because I think there's more. I think something else is either they're seeing if there's something else or there's something else coming and they know it. Because if you look at it, yes, the domestic violence, which is the most important one part of this, it's there. But I think everybody keeps staring there. But I don't know what I can say on here, but you had the head of recruiting.
You can say
strip
anything
clubs,
on here, by the way.
Right? You had the head of recruiting doing some funny things in the Woody Hayes facility. And then you had this whole thing come out about Tom Herman blowing the whistle because of a certain recruit, top recruit out of 2019 that they pulled and got to come to Ohio State. So if you think about Zach Smith as he is as a person that we know for a fact he makes real bad decisions, I feel like there's something else because if he was making those decisions here at home, just imagine what he was doing on the road. So I just think there's a little bit more to this puzzle than they are letting to be known.
Hold on, Mr. Stanley. Are you saying that you think there will be more revealed in the coming weeks, possibly?
Either revealed or they're still checking and waiting because if something comes up, right?
Sure.
You can say, well, Urban didn't coach those first 3 games, so we don't have to forfeit any games because remember, Jim Tressel, they gave him 4 games and then they let him go. But Urban's MO down in Florida, he protected a lot of his top players, right? I mean, loyalty. You loyal to your players.
Absolutely.
You can catch up
Especially the good ones.
Especially the good ones, right? And that's his MO. We know this.
That's how it goes.
And he protected Zach Smith. We know this. And, you know, as a man, as a coach, you want to, you know, say he's my mentor's grandson. My mentor is why I'm where I am. So you want to protect him. But I think this might be one of those moments that it might bite him in the tail because Zach Smith is a terrible, terrible decision maker, and he was ahead of the recruiting department at the Ohio State University. And what we know facts of, if he was doing that here,
oh boy,
what was he doing out there on the streets? That's all I got to say. So, I don't know where it's going to go, but I feel like Gene Smith knew about the domestic violence, right? That's what they said he was supposed to do, the higher ups.
Sure.
And then Gene Smith said, hey, I told him he should fire the guy twice. So Urban did his deal, right? Why'd you suspend him for 3 games? I don't know. I just feel like there's more there that we're not hearing about yet.
So I agree with you on the point that, you know, if protocol was followed, proper protocol, and I quote from the report, both Urban and you know, Gene acted in good faith.
Right.
Why the suspension? That's what we're all trying to figure out.
And when stuff doesn't make sense,
it's
usually something else.
You remove all else.
Yeah.
What do you think, AJ?
Well, I have a little bit more controversial view on it, so I don't know how
we love controversy around here.
Wow, more controversial than Dimitrious?
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Like, wow.
That was conspiracy theory level.
So I agree with everything you said. I think that there probably is where there's smoke there's fire, right?
Right.
You know, so I guess the only thing that bothered me about this whole thing was the one thing or the one angle nobody's really talking about, which is because I saw it firsthand in 2013. I was interning there. I had to deal with all the coaches. I mean, I was a special teams intern, so I reported directly to Coach Meyer.
Sure.
I dealt with Coach Smith a lot. He ran pump block, so you know I had to do his depth chart, and I saw some of the activity he was doing. He's definitely a wild card.
Oh, boy.
I mean, I saw that in 2013, and to be completely frank, he's the reason I got out of it. Because he was going through the divorce.
I like Frank.
Hold on, AJ. Let's get into that. So, so not only is Zach somebody that we all know, he's fired now. So I mean, clearly, he is what he is.
Right.
But you're saying that he has a history.
Well, let me put this out.
Decision maker.
I am no perfect person. I've made tons of mistakes in my life.
None of us are.
And
We all have.
however, I saw some things just from an attitude perspective, and then also the way I justified it was, all right, well, Zach's putting in so much time, it's destroying his marriage at home. I had no idea about the stuff he was doing on the side, and I didn't care. It's none of my business.
Right.
So the controversial angle that I think that should be addressed at some point, and now is probably not the right time because of the sensitivity towards domestic violence.
Yeah.
And
Me
how
Too.
exactly.
Yeah.
But I saw it on her end too.
Oh,
She showed up to practice a couple times, not in the good state of mind. All right. This relationship was so toxic
yes.
that
That's the word I keep hearing about their relationship.
the problem that I have with this entire investigation is it started with one thing. Okay, it was a domestic violence charge against him, and quite frankly, there is no charge. It was a trespassing.
No, it was an allegation.
It was an allegation. There were no charges filed, and you can debate that all you want. Then this all gets blown completely out of the water by 11 Warriors and what's the guy's name for?
We know the other ones. Yeah.
For
Anyway.
Jeff Snook or whatever his name
Yeah,
is.
No,
it was
we're
the
talking
other
about Brett
guy.
Murphy.
Brett Murphy. They started reporting on this trespassing issue.
He's made his whole career off of this whole thing.
Yeah. So the trespassing issue is that they had obviously decided they were going to trade off kids at a neutral location.
Right.
Well, whatever he had going on that night, he didn't have time, so he just dropped him off at her house. My question and my angle on this entire thing is her angle, her side of this, because it seems to me. And I'm not saying that if it did happen, and that's not what I'm trying to say here. I'm not saying like if there was domestic abuse.
Words, you say exactly what's on your mind.
But I just think that there's more coming out of her end of the story that's not getting talked about.
All right, quickly, let me chime in on that one, and because I heard something similar.
Yeah.
And I've heard from a coach on staff, a former coach on staff, who's now in the pros, but his wife, who spent some time with Courtney, after a dinner party, specifically pulled Zach aside and said, "Never have her in my house again," because of how she was acting.
Yeah,
right. This is a woman I know personally who's like, a saint. Like she would never say that unless you were truly, somebody
deal.
that she just couldn't deal with. And this is not about victim shaming or bashing because we don't really know what the victim, who the victim is right now. All we know is that there were allegations, and we know somebody got fired.
Right.
And we know there was a divorce. That's it.
The victims are the kids.
And the victims are always going to be the kids. Thank you, George.
Always keep in mind.
Exactly.
And that being said, go ahead.
Well, the domestic violence thing, that kind of is like the tip of the iceberg for me.
Yeah.
There were so many other tentacles coming off of that, with the stuff he was getting sent to the Woody Hayes.
The adult
facility.
toys.
Yeah, the adult toys, $2,000 worth, right? And then,
it's an expensive habit.
Right. And then you making whatever with a staff member in the facility. Yeah. You at the White House.
Taking pictures
of, yourself. Yeah. And then you're down in Florida recruiting with, strip clubs, $600-700 bills. That's a lot of money at a strip club, right?
Big time.
And then
really.
and then when he got called back in town, right? He just so happened to be in Texas, and they called him off the road. And I'm assuming that's when he was with that recruit. So I just feel like there are so many tentacles. And once you start digging into any university at any point, right? And it's not just Ohio State. It could be anywhere, Division II, Division I, wherever. You start digging. And we've been in the top recruiting classes for, the last 4 years? I mean,
since like forever.
Yeah, this could go a direction that nobody's thinking. But like I said, I look at what's all being said. The domestic violence was the start, but then it just kept just kept happening.
That's what I wanted to say is this is setting a precedent that I don't like.
Yeah.
So let's just say that Coach Meyer was arrested. All right, just for the argument's sake. He wasn't, obviously. Not saying he was. But let's say he was arrested for a charge. Well, they find him not guilty of that charge, but in the investigation of said charge, they find some stuff that is unsavory in that. And then that's where the punishment comes from. That's exactly what happened in this case. They started the investigation about a domestic violence charge and the cover-up thereof. Obviously, Gene Smith and Coach Meyer, according to the reports, sent that upstairs and handled it to protocol. Maybe the protocol needs to be changed. However, they're being suspended because other things have come to light.
Right now, and
there's two things to that. I think they're partly being suspended because we live in an age of, social media deciding who's guilty or innocent.
Right. Before you even get your trial.
Before you get your trial. No one does research anymore. I said this earlier. People see a headline and then they go into a comment section, decide how all the comments are swaying, and then they go, cool, I'm going with the bandwagon. Yep, Urban's a monster. He should be out of there. What is he still doing there? No one's actually done any research. No one actually realizes that charges were never filed, that the Powell police investigated it, found no evidence of wrongdoing.
Right.
There's no actual evidence that he hit anyone.
Right.
Now, I'm not saying he didn't, because to AJ's point, we've had a lot of people come forward and discuss Zach Smith's character.
Right.
And I think the picture's been painted vividly enough to we can all assume he's probably an unsavory human being.
Right.
But we're talking about in the court of law, he's good to go.
It's good to go.
So why is his former employer being held accountable for his marital issues?
Well, that whole piece, this is another piece where it gets a little cloudy, is they had 10,000, I think it was 10,000 files, right? Mm-hmm. And they had Urban saying, hey, delete some of those text messages. Why did you have them delete it? So that's another direction that's going to go. So like I said, man, there's so many tentacles to this thing that it could go any. Like
Dimitrious, I know for a fact you're probably right. I know there's more that can come out.
Got to be.
But as it pertains to, and I'm just playing devil's advocate, I'm not defending Urban, but I'm just saying we all need context, right? So if there were some text messages that without context could look really bad, I'd want them deleted too.
Sure.
Even if we all would, just to be on the safe side. I think he's probably going, let's go scorched earth, wipe everything, because I don't need anything popping up and looking a certain way, and it isn't that. Who knows?
But, bro, when it's in the sky, see, you can't see it physically, but when you hit that send button, it's right there floating in the sky. It's all there.
And
I was talking to it wasn't a friend of mine. It was just a guy that I know, and he's a cop, investigator, or whatever.
Sure.
And he said the worst thing that when there's an investigation of anything, the worst thing to start that investigation off for you as a person that is being blamed is they find anything that says delete it.
Sure.
They said if your best chance is just let it ride, whatever it is, let it be there. But the moment you say delete it, then you now open up the whole can. Now they want to really dig to the bottom. And, usually that surface thing is the least of everything. But what was behind that, and then when they find something to say delete it, that's when it gets worse for you.
Well, that's my big thing, and I just want to clarify. I'm not getting into the specifications of the domestic violence aspect of this. That's not what I'm getting into. What my problem with the entire thing, and you just take out Urban Meyer and substitute any other head coach across the country.
Sure.
Right.
If this happens and you're going to investigate and subsequently react with consequences in this type of fashion, all right, where do you draw the line? All right, is it a player who screws up and now all of a sudden you're supposed to be babysitting this guy all night? And then, okay, now we need all the players' text messages to find out who knew what, and where does this rabbit hole go?
I think I know where you're going with this, because the reality of it is, what is a head football coach's job description really? Is his job to be a marriage counselor? Is his job to be checking on all of his coaches while they're in their homes and keeping tabs?
Personal
if you work for Chase and you hit your wife, can your wife call Jamie Dimon and say, I need you held accountable for him? Like, where do we draw the line? Because this sets a precedence that I'm not sure. I'd be nervous to take a head coaching job if who knows, a guy has a rough night, does something he shouldn't do, and they're calling me going, dude, you got to go down for what that guy. Right. Hold on, I was in bed. I was asleep.
Good luck trying to get onto a major Power 6 program with having gone to a strip club in the last 12 months, and they can prove that. Good luck.
And that's the biggest issue. Yeah. So I think, but moving forward, AJ, just for you specifically, I'm curious because you alluded to Zach Smith being part of the reason why you felt like maybe this isn't where I want to be. Mm-hmm. Can you expound upon that a little bit?
Yeah. Well, that was more based on just the crumbling of his relationship that I got to see firsthand. I didn't get to see, and I certainly didn't know about the undertakings of what he was doing behind closed doors and what
you just saw a glimpse.
I saw the relationship, and I was in a fairly young relationship, now married to my wife, but she was my girlfriend at the time. And so what I feared was the time commitment at a program like Ohio State that you have to put in between recruiting, coaching, watching film, putting together practice plans, game plans.
It's a stress on a relationship.
It can be, and that's why I backed out. And I think it was a good decision for my relationship.
Sure.
Now, aside from that, as far as all this investigation goes, I I like Zach Smith. It's weird to talk about somebody who's going through something like this. I mean,
Absolutely.
I had a relationship based on purely professional coaching, and I liked him, but I didn't like the way that his relationship was. It's seeing it firsthand. So that's where my decision came from.
Gotcha.
It had nothing to do with going out and boozing up and going to pure platinum. And,
well, guys, I think one of the things that we all have
Never
to
heard
keep
of that
in
place.
mind,
I don't know what that is.
And we have been doing it, is all we can do, much like the Board of Trustees and the investigators, is make a lot of conclusions on the facts we know. And, there weren't any charges filed. There were a lot of allegations by all sides, and there continue to be to this day. And from what Dimitrious was hinting at earlier, there'll continue to be a lot of allegations made about a lot of things. But, we can only act on what we know to be fact. And, ever since we started talking about this thing a month or so ago, I've tried to be mindful of the fact that everybody involved in this has a family. And, they all have loved ones. They all have kids. It's hard on everybody. And I guess to that point, you got to just let it play out through the legal system and let it play out like the Board of Trustees did last week in terms of making decisions based on the facts that they knew. My only question about last week is, if Drake says that Urban didn't do anything wrong, I just don't understand why he's not coaching Saturday.
None of us do.
That's the thing.
Except for Dimitrious.
Dimitrious doesn't know. Dimitrious likes to analytically look at everything that was said. And if he did what he was supposed to do, right, we all agree that they said he did what he was supposed to do, was supposed to go up the chain of command. So what was the 3-game suspension for?
Yeah, because he didn't go to compliance. I mean, they keep bringing up compliance, and I've never seen anywhere where that was part of his job description.
Well, technically, they looked it up. Technically, it's Brian Votelini's responsibility to go to compliance.
There you go.
And there's somebody ahead of
director of player personnel. So
is he suspended
Coach Myers said, well, no, but he took it to Brian Votelini and then subsequently to Gene Smith. Right, so it went up that chain technically by the letter of the law of the job description. Brian Votelini should have reached out to compliance.
And then I just think there's a lot of pressure with you got to look at the chain of events over the last 5 months. You had, and this wasn't in this time frame, it was a long time ago, but you had the doctor with the wrestlers, and then you had the diving coach with campers, and then you had domestic violence. Whether there was the violence in there or not, it was a term that was thrown out for the public to see. So you have
not looking good for Gene, what you're saying.
Well,
that's what I was going to say, Jay. You're ruining it for me because I was going to say,
that's all OSU athletics.
And then you just look at
one common thread there.
Yeah, well that's what I'm saying. So somebody's got to take a fall for this, because now it's not you messed up. It's not you messed up or you messed up. It's now becoming culture. It's moving to the point where people are going to say, this is becoming your culture. You had a wrestling coach, you had a diving coach, you had now domestic violence, and then you go to Michigan State with that thing. And then I'll even take it back as far as 2009 with Penn State.
Oh, boy.
And then you go to Jim Tressel. And so you just start getting these
let's not put this in the same category.
I'm not putting
I know what you're saying. I know exactly what you're saying. But
for the Big Ten, since 2009, we have had some just downright crazy stuff. I mean,
absolutely.
Right. So when you start to put the big picture together of the Big Ten and they're big things that happen at Ohio State, and then you start putting all this stuff together, like the Big Ten's going to have to probably make some kind of moves, because that sounds like a Big Ten culture, right? That's been happening under the Big Ten watch. Then you break it down to each little university. Michigan State that's a big scandal, right? That's a big scandal. Then you come to the doctor, and then the diving coach with campers, and then this thing has so many tentacles, man, that somebody has to go down and somebody has to make some decisions that's going to be definitive on somebody's career, because there's just too much in this big picture that somebody's got to go.
I mean, isn't that our society's culture, though, right? You have all these pockets of things that happen that shouldn't happen, and it goes on everywhere from the Catholic Church to to Penn State football, right? To Syracuse basketball. To you could call out
what happened in Maryland? Something happened in Maryland.
Maryland, a kid passed away.
I
mean, you could look in any major organization or corporation or
somebody's life,
and you're going to find a lot of things wrong. And at the end of the day, we all feel better and sleep better at night if someone goes down for it.
That's basically
because it's like, okay, great, it's done, but it's not. It's never going to be done. It's human nature,
right?
So at this point, all you can really do is just look at like we keep saying, what are the facts? Who did something wrong? Did they handle protocol? And as we have all agreed, if all protocol was handled, why is there a suspension?
But I think now, because of the stigma and the time in our society that we're in, facts don't matter anymore, man. It's about emotions now.
Perception.
It is about emotions and how people feel about it. They could care less if Zach actually did what they said it did. They heard domestic violence. Something
that's
has
the
to
hot
be
button
done.
topic.
That's what I think President Drake was all about.
Yeah.
What I've heard that had come out of that committee room was the committee had made their findings. They said, okay, based on what we came into this room to discover, he's good. Coach Meyer's fine. They reported this. Did it happen in a manner that we think could have done better? Yes, but according to the way the laws or the rules are written within Ohio State, they did what they did. I think personally,
and President Drake
this
said,
is just a speculation. I think that Dr. Drake walked into that room and said he's a product of this generation right now in CYA, right?
Yeah.
So he walks in with a totally non-sports biased attitude.
Completely non-biased.
No offense to President Drake if he is, but he doesn't seem like a sports fan.
I know President Drake personally.
They say he's not.
I know President Drake personally. He's not a big sports fan.
They say
I think he had an agenda.
He can watch a football game and not know what the heck's going on.
He had an agenda.
And he's a great guy. It's not taking a shot at him.
Right, I'm not either.
He's just not a big football guy.
I just think he had an agenda walking in the room that he's going to get his flesh. He is going to get his pound of flesh out of this just so the university comes out on this side with saying, well, at least we did something.
And to his defense, he's not wrong. No. We know the situation where you just alluded to the fact that we're in a culture where the truth doesn't really matter. It's how does everyone feel about the situation and what topics is this touching on? And people have these hot button issues and they form these platforms based on a certain issue. So when this issue came up, if you go on ESPN, there's a handful of pundits and talking heads who this is their issue. So whenever ESPN discusses this, they get that person and they hop all over it because
it's the hype train.
Just go with no facts, with no real understanding of what truly happened. No one's been arrested, by the way.
Doesn't matter.
ESPN's the worst about it. They are the hype train to the fullest about anything, and they hype right.
They got to get ratings.
Guys,
somehow.
let's talk a little bit about this football team.
Oh yeah, there's still a football team, right?
Wait, we came here to talk about football? I didn't know that.
What about this leadership team that is the Ohio State football program right now? Ryan Day, Greg Schiano, Kevin Wilson. AJ, what are your thoughts on the leadership of this team going into week one?
I don't think they'll miss a beat. I think the fact that Coach Day is in the first-time role as a head coach, interim head coach, I don't think it matters at all. I think he's got support from Schiano, and I think they've got a heck of a coaching staff that's still in place. I think they're doing everything to script with practice and what they want to install offensively, what kind of defenses they're running, that they're going to be fine. I am interested to see because Coach Meyer has such a hand on the special teams. I'm interested to see how that goes. But we're in a fortunate position where we have a senior kicker and we've got a punter that's coming back who's got a ton of talent. And I think they'll be fine on that end. I don't think there's any problem moving forward whether he's there or not.
Well,
Dimitrious, how about all these receivers named co-captains? Have you ever seen anything like that? I mean, they've got 10 receivers, and Ryan Day said today you'll see all of them play on Saturday.
So basically what he's saying in a nutshell is I don't have anybody yet that's a receiver. I'll tell you, with the receiving core, personally, I love Paris Campbell. He's not a receiver. He's an athlete that's very explosive. KJ Hill, he's an athlete and very explosive. They do not have quote-unquote wide receivers. You have, in order to function in Urban's game, because his whole game is about talent, I want you to be able to run fast, jump fast, cover a lot of space. Now, a lot of those players do not have the skill of catching the ball every play. When they get the rock, very dangerous, but they got to catch it. And I think having a lot of athletes versus some wide receivers, that's why J.T. Barrett struggled a lot, because you saw him. He would be there they don't have receivers. They have a bunch of athletes that they want to get the ball in space and make plays. So basically,
what about Johnny Dixon? I'll give him Johnny Dixon. I think he has a skill set.
Okay, he might have the skill set.
I think he has a skill set.
He might have the skill set, but you have to actually convert that on the field, and I haven't seen that.
A couple plays last year, but a couple plays.
I mean, a couple plays, but you think about how many times J.T. Barrett sat back there.
Listen, I don't disagree with you for a second.
Santonio Holmes, like a pure.
There's no Santonio Holmes in this class. There's not even a Ted Ginn in this class. Who, to be honest with you, Ted coming out really didn't have a great skill set. He was just a freak athlete,
just blazing fast.
But I think he's got a skill set a little bit better than some of these guys. I think I agree with Dimitrious when you say all 10 guys are going to play. That means you don't have two really go-to guys. I want to see a lot more out of Benjamin Victor. I want to see if he's going to decide to kind of emerge as that big-time target, especially in the red zone. You're 6'4", you got to be able to make those plays. And like you said, we haven't seen that rapport between receiver and quarterback yet, where we find a guy. And we need at least one guy. And
then not having that one guy messes a quarterback up completely, because think about this. As a quarterback going in the game, okay, no matter what happens, I know my dude's going to be open.
Yeah.
And so you're right there and you're like, okay, I could get him. But when you have a setup like we have currently where you don't know who's going to be open, it's going to cause quarterbacks to look all over the field. It's going to cause them to rush their pass. They're going to overthrow the pass because they haven't found that one guy that calms them down, that makes them confident to know I got this guy. So that's why it's very interesting that we saw when we went to drop back passing with J.T. Barrett what it looked like. It didn't look like that's what we were supposed to be doing quite often. And they made Haskins the guy. And he's not – and for me, in an Urban Meyer offense, you need a guy that can get out and scare the daylights out of a defense because his feet are nice. But he doesn't seem to he'll get out of the pocket. I saw him run a couple times. But
he doesn't want to.
He doesn't want to. And to be a pocket guy and not have a solid so you're going with a pocket offense – that's what you're telling us. Drop back guy with a gun, and you haven't determined who your top receivers are yet. That may not be a good combination to go into a season with, but they have Martell, who seems to have the feet, get out, make plays, and can get the ball out of his hand and to another receiver's hand. But I think that's going to be –
I don't think we're going to see much of Martell. I don't
know.
It's real easy when you can hand it off to 1,000-yard backs.
I was going to say
that too. Yeah,
you got two big-time all Big Ten backs, and you got a big offensive line. You can lean on that until someone emerges as a guy. But I do agree with you. It was nice a few years back having a Michael Thomas on 3rd and 11.
Right.
You can toss it up.
That's my guy.
He's coming down with the ball.
Right.
He has a skill set. He's big and strong.
We got a couple minutes to go here. Give me your college football playoff predictions. Who's your top four?
I'm just going to say my basics. I mean, I don't even have that right now.
AJ, you want to go first?
Well, I mean, you got to put Alabama in there.
Everybody's going to go there.
I think Clemson has followed up another year of unbelievable recruiting, and Dabo's still there. So pending some – and plus the ACC, I mean, it's just a wash right now. Florida State's in no shape to contend.
Right.
I like them. As a homer, I got to believe the schedule lines up really well for Ohio State. You get through these
this year it
TCU.
Does.
Yeah. And really, TCU, what have they really been the last couple of years? And then, your fourth, it's going to be a year where I think it's going to be a multi-conference. Two teams from one conference are going to get in.
Yeah.
I'd like to think that Wisconsin battles it out, but the problem is, in order to win the Big Ten and get that automatic bid in, as long as your regular season went well, you're going to have to play each other. If Wisconsin and Ohio State are going to have to play.
Right.
In the in the Pac-10, the Big 12 is I mean, they're done. There's nobody out there.
They have nobody right now.
And in the Pac-10, it's hard to believe that USC's there yet.
No.
I don't think they've come all the way back.
Especially not losing a big-time quarterback.
Right.
Yeah,
USC's
you can forget about that whole part of the country.
Yeah. The West Coast is out of it.
I think the fourth
they're
team,
just not a factor.
The fourth team,
I think, is a
toss-up.
That's
guys, that's what I would say.
Will Urban Meyer coach Ohio State next season?
That
George, is a deep question.
Is
George.
a serious question.
Well, it's a yes or no.
And it shouldn't be this hard to come up with an answer.
Yes, the answer is yes, and President Drake won't be there next year.
Oh, good.
You're saying Drake.
Wow.
Hot take.
And Gene Smith might not be.
I'm gonna go with Urban will be the coach. I think this team will not miss a beat when he's gone. I think this whole situation has galvanized this group of guys, and they feel like it's them against the world. I've been at practice. They all have this mentality of the whole world's against us. They all hate us. We're gonna go out there and show them all, and that brings the team.
Pretty much true, by the way.
Which is it's not far off from the truth. But that with a group of young kids who are emotional, that can bring a group together. I think this is going to be like Dimitrious said, like you said, the schedule just sets up kind of nice. I think it'll be a big year. I think it'll be a really good year. I think OSU goes to the playoffs.
Dimitrious, do you think Urban's back next year?
And Urban's back.
Depending on what these 3-game suspensions
conspiracy
mean.
Theorists.
No, it's not. It's taking things of what they're saying. I took facts, right? There's a lot of tentacles. I took facts of what was reported
yes
to
or
us,
no,
and I'm working with
Dimitrious? Is Urban back next year?
Depending on this 3-game suspension and what it truly means, I don't know.
Give us a yes or no. Have some courage in your convictions.
That is my courage. I'm telling you that this 3-game suspension, it means something. It means something. I'm going to say yeah, but somebody's not going to be there. That's somebody's got to go. There's been too many incidents lately, and Urban had that thing with covering up for a lot of his players down in Florida. How many of those are going to come out? I
got a feeling it's Gene that won't be there.
Do you see a direction that your program is going because of a certain type of player that your coach likes to bring in? There's a lot to that, but yeah, I think you'll be here. I'll just say that.
All right, guys. Hey, thank you all so much for coming in. AJ, great to see you again. Dimitrious, you're one of my favorites. You know that. It's great to see you. And we're going to be back to wrap it up in just a minute on EBSN Online.
The Rivalry, a historic showdown between two great teams and two passionate fan bases. This season, join Germain Honda of Dublin and Germain Honda of Ann Arbor as we relive the greatest moments in the history of the game, with special offers for listeners. Discover Honda's award-winning lineup of cars and SUVs, like the 2017 CR-V, starting at just over $24,000. But rest assured, whether you're in Ann Arbor or Columbus, you can count on Germain Honda to deliver the right car, the right price, the right way.
It really is the difference between winning and losing, being able to get your hands inside, defeat blockers, and it works at all positions and all skill levels. I'm Joey Bosa. See the difference in your game.
And we're back on EBSN Online. I'm George Lehner with Jay Richardson. The first week of college football, always exciting. In case you missed the news today, former Buckeye quarterback Joe Burrow was named the starting quarterback at LSU today, which everybody I know that was following his career is happy to see him get through that. Jay, we only have like a minute or so left. Walk me through Saturday, though. It's such a exciting time. How do you think it's going to go Saturday with Ryan Day and Schiano and these guys?
I have this feeling that they're going to come out and they're going to be rocking. Oregon State doesn't have a fantastic defense. I'm not saying this is a fantastic test for them. The team is a little bit better than I think people want to give them credit for. I know right now Ohio State's a 37-point favorite, which is just always ridiculous. But then again, I have this gut feeling, everything's going to be scripted that first drive, and I got a feeling they're going to come out with an entire scripted drive, march right down, get in the end zone, lean on the running backs. They're going to show you a little bit about who these 10 receivers are that we're going to feature, and the defense will be hellacious. This defensive line is going to get after them, and I think it'll be a big time win, and everyone's going to be feeling good going into week 2. So no one panic. And if for some reason Haskins comes out a little bit, rusty, or everything's not hitting the way it should, or timing's off, that's okay. Offense takes some time, but this defense, get ready for this, folks. Get ready for this.
The game of the week this weekend is going to be Saturday night in South Bend, Indiana.
Oh, yeah.
When Notre Dame hosts Harbaugh and his Michigan Wolverines. They've got a long way to go until they meet us November 24th, but this first game Saturday night is really going to tell a lot about where Harbaugh and his Wolverines are going into this really pivotal year. I really think Harbaugh's got to be careful with wins and losses this year. So that's going to be a fun game to watch. NBC has that game Saturday night nationwide.
Yeah, going to be a huge game. And also, new quarterback for Michigan. They just lost their top receiver, I heard, to a foot
injury on Saturday.
Yeah, that's a huge, huge loss. And you got to realize that Harbaugh will be on the hot seat if they drop 1 or 2 of their first 6 games. That's going to be very, very bad. And we need, as the Big Ten, we need Michigan to be big-time Michigan so that when we take them out, we look fantastic or more fantastic. So, yeah.
And, of course, as always, the countdown continues. It's been 2,466 days.
Oh, that's nice.
Since Michigan's last win over Ohio State in football.
Nice.
Enjoy this first week of college football. Thanks for watching and listening tonight. We'll see you next Monday night.